Welcome to Books and More. I'm your host, William Cooper, and delighted to have Susan Dominus with us today. She is a staff writer for the New York Times Magazine. She is also the author of a new book, The Family Dynamic, A Journey into the Mystery of Sibling Success. And this book has been critically acclaimed, doing very well, and it was just recently named an editor's pick, Best Book of the Year by Amazon. And I think we all know the competition for awards on Amazon, given the volume of books and competition, quite fierce. So congratulations, Susan, and welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So before we jump into the book, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background as a journalist?
I have been working as a staff writer at the New York Times Magazine for many, many years and written many cover stories for them, long form stories. And very often, no matter what the assignment was, it could be about longevity, it could be about girls going to school for the first time in Afghanistan. Somehow I ended up telling those stories through the framework of families. And it's something that I have a great fascination with. And it kind of only made sense that when I started to think about what book I would want to write, that this would be a subject that came to mind.
And how precisely did you tackle this subject in the book?
I said about so just the topic of the book, is about high achieving families, families with unusual siblings, numbers of siblings who reach some level of not just achievement, but what I would consider kind of vision or something extraordinary. And so that was the first thing I had to figure out is, well, what's my definition of success? I decided I wasn't going to write about people's personal lives because who am I to weigh in on whether someone's personal life is successful or not? And in terms of achievement, as I said, I really wanted families that had either overcome something very difficult or had children who really believed they could kind of change the world, or break records. I was looking for people who's in families who were kind of on the extreme end of things. How do you raise children who believe that they can do something remarkable in the world?
That's great. And what was one of the first lessons you learned as you did a deep dive into this?
Well, I thought I was going to be writing a book about parenting, but when I actually started, and it is to some degree, there's a lot in there about the influence of parents on the children and the siblings in this book. But when I really started asking about the nitty-gritty of how people got from point A to point B or how they made the decisions they made, what I heard over and over and over again was my brother made an introduction, my sister inspired me. My sister supported me, my brother, guided me and or competed with me. And I realized that, siblings, I think, are much more responsible for our outcomes in life than is usually discussed.
Interesting. And I wonder, is that because siblings are more, is part of the equation that they're more like your peer and therefore you care more about what they say and your parents are just kind of old fogies that are easy to ignore? Is that what's at work or part of it?
You're not far off, I think. I mean, during adolescence, in our 20s, we're still like young people are still separating from their parents. And we know that adolescents don't really love getting advice from their parents, nor do young adults really. So part of that is just developmental, I think. My friend Lisa Damour, the developmental psychologist, calls advice from parents the kiss of death advice. That's how little young people want to hear from them. But also, yeah, I think it's not the old fogey so much, but it's more that young people can see each other's futures with more imagination and more accuracy. They're not trying to fit each other into a world that's already dying. They're trying to fit them into the future. Sometimes your older sibling comes from the future, they're already in it and they can report back and they can guide you. So, for example, just if it's helpful for your readers, I've organized the book into the stories of 6 different extraordinary families. And each one which I hope reads almost like a novella. It's very personal. These people are not perfect. They've been very honest with me. And then alternating with those chapters are chapters that are about the social science or science that kind of reflects back on the chapter you've just read. So one of the families I wrote about is the Hollifield family. They're a family of civil rights pioneers. And, when Marilyn, this is just to get back to the sibling influence, when Marilyn Hollifield was 21 and had just graduated from Swarthmore College in like 1968 or 1969, she, as a Black woman who'd grown up in, Jim Crow, south of Florida, would not necessarily have been somebody whose parents would say, you should do now, go to Harvard Law School. But her brother had been part of a project to diversify Harvard, and he had been there, and he said to her, you should go to Harvard Law School. So I don't think her parents would have necessarily had that vision, but her older brother did, and it definitely changed her life and gave her power that she would take with her into her future.
That's great. What you've described sounds like a little bit more of the nurture side than the nature side. First question is that right? And then second question, broader, is what did you learn about that nature versus nurture debate?
The way I usually talk about it is to say two things. We know now that parenting effects on children are consequential, but they are still much smaller than we think they are. I mean, they're profound and they're meaningful. However, when we talk about the environment versus genetics, another way of saying nature versus nurture, or nurture versus nature, um, what we're really talking about in the environment is everything you experience. It's your teachers, it's your peers, it's the weather where you live, it's how sunny your bedroom was, it's did you break your leg in fourth grade? It's who's your roommate, who sits next to you in second grade. These things can have huge consequence on our lives. So parenting is just a small part of the environment. And I think that we overestimate the effect of parenting on our lives, and we underestimate the role that siblings play in our lives, which is not to say that sibling effects are more powerful than parenting effects. I'm not saying that. It's just they're underappreciated and parenting effects are overappreciated.
Interesting. And you're right, there's so many different things that impact who you are as a person and who you are growing
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
what about somebody who's an only child that doesn't have that sibling? I mean, how does that impact them or fit into your thesis?
I didn't really write about only siblings. I mean, the most I can say is that oldest siblings tend to have the highest IQs in their families. They tend to have some kind of cognitive edge. And
Hmm.
there are a couple of reasons for why that must be, but definitely one of them is that they are the only ones who benefit from the undivided attention of their parents. So, you know, only children may not have siblings to spur them on or make those social
Yeah,
connections, but they have two other things. They have all of their parents' financial resources and all of their attention and enrichment. So I think that whatever only children lose out on in not having siblings, they gain in both the financial and other kinds of resources they get from their parents.
that's a good point. I've always wondered about that because the idea that you have the undivided attention of your parents is obviously a huge factor. And those of us with multiple children know what it's like when number two shows up. There's the competition for attention. But my my gut, which is often wrong, is that the older sibling would be stimulating the younger sibling in ways that the older sibling didn't get because there wasn't an older brother or an older sister there, and that it would net out actually as if I had to have guessed, the younger sibling would have had the advantage just because there's another human being in the equation. Does that help sometimes? Did you learn anything about that dynamic at all?
I mean, it's all averages, so it's hard
Yeah,
to really, I'm sure that is the case sometimes.
yeah.
But the other reason why sometimes people think that older children have a cognitive advantage, that they benefit from having a sibling, because it's not so much that the younger sibling is getting the enrichment from parents and siblings, is that the older sibling is exercising an element of teaching or
Yeah.
instruction. It's thought
Explaining
to
things. Yeah,
exactly, and that's thought to
yeah,
sharpen their cognitive ability. Yeah,
yeah.
somehow. Consolidating
This,
information,
yeah,
synthesizing it, transmitting it.
yeah. The 6-year-old teaching the 3-year-old how to turn the Nintendo on probably
Yeah,
helps.
yeah. Now the 3-year-old would probably benefit more from having the parent teach them how to
Yeah,
turn the Nintendo. They're using bigger vocabulary, words, more complex ideas. But the 6-year-old is, better off teaching the 3-year-old than not teaching anybody.
yeah. And the book and the name again is The Family Dynamic, A Journey into the Mystery of Sibling Success. Uh, a really fascinating way to structure it with different families and different stories. Why don't you tell us about another family that you enjoyed writing about that's in the book?
Sure. Well, the first family I wrote about is this family, the Groffs, and they were just to give you a sense of their family culture. They actually use an adjective to describe themselves, which is grotty, and grotty is a word for kind of sticking with something through brute force, even if you're not, making very sophisticated headway, you just keep going, and a kind of stick-to-itiveness and determination. Um, Lauren Groff is a superb novelist who is, I would say one of the great writers of our generation, many times National Book Award finalist, frequently published in the New Yorker, somebody asked to write introductions for anthologies. Um, and Lauren has a sister named Sarah True, who is an Olympic triathlete who is now a world-class triathlon Ironman competitor, which is an even more extreme sport. And their brother went to medical school and business school and became a serial healthcare entrepreneur and has started and sold numerous very, very successful businesses intended to really help improve the healthcare industry. Oh,
Wow,
so yeah. So those three siblings, what fascinated me about them is that they're so different, but they're also so successful in, in such different fields. And um, that to me was made them really an intriguing family to get close to.
absolutely. And it's it is rare to see all of you often see families with lots of siblings. The outcomes vary quite a bit, so to see them all sort of right tail is something special. Did they have how did they impact each other? And by they, I mean the siblings. And sounds like maybe the parents gave that sort of overall culture, but how did the siblings interact and impact each other to help them achieve that success?
I would say that you see differentiation as like an adaptive strategy in that family. And Will, if you don't mind, I'm going to move so that my laptop is being charged. I'm sorry, I just
Sure.
realized that you can edit that easily out. Yeah, so the what differentiation that family looks like is Sarah True telling me that she became a triathlete not just because she loved sports. As she tells it, she very specifically was looking for a place where she could excel, because she had older siblings who were superb students, as was she, I'm sure. But she knew this was an arena, she said, that they were not interested in. Or, they did sports, but it wasn't their main cause, their main passion. So for her, it was a way to distinguish herself. And that you see as differentiation, I would say, with Lauren and her older brother, competition was really the motivating factor. She said to me at some point that a kind of resentment of her older brother, with his older brother ways, was like 90% of what motivated her to want to succeed, in whatever she did. In this case, it was being a novelist. So you can see it through sibling effects, through differentiation, through competition, but also you see it sometimes through collaboration. Sarah True, when she was training, moved to the Hanover area in New Hampshire to be closer to her brother because she really needed like a locus of support while she was training for triathlons is really really grueling. Or I also wrote about this incredible family, the Chens, who were a family that immigrated from China, and when the kids were very very small, and they were really some of the only Chinese kids in the high school. I mean, only Asian kids really, and their parents were working so hard at a Chinese restaurant that they really had to lean on each other for academic support, editing each other's college essays. And the oldest sister, handpicked the coach and the sport that she thought her younger brother should do. They worked on their musical instruments together. They, coached each other. They did duets together. They were really this incredible unit of four siblings.
That's great. Did you pick up on anything that parents can do to help foster an environment where siblings have these positive impacts on each other?
I think obviously to the extent that you can eliminate a sense of comparison among siblings, that's really healthy. And the thing that, I didn't really write about this in the book, but I have written in the past about favoritism. And one thing I will say is that when when somebody is being favored, it can be really toxic for the whole family. And if parents are real with themselves, very often they will admit that they are favoring one child over the other at a given point of time. And when that's happening, I just think this is advice that I once got for my own two children who are fraternal twin boys. And it was so invaluable for us. Like, I just think having one on one time, even an overnight, it doesn't have to be at a fancy hotel. It could be at, a friend's empty house or away, or it could be at like just a local place, but letting the kid pick the meal, pick the movie. Your eyes are on them. They get to pick the activity. Do they want to go to the zoo? Do they want to go to the playground? Do they want just your eyes on them? That one-on-one bonding, I think, is so helpful. There's a sense that, like, oh, we have to be close as a family, and the best way to do that is to spend time together as a family. I actually think sometimes the best way to do that is to have a little bit of one-on-one time, so that each child feels seen and not hungry for attention.
Absolutely. How does is there a relationship or maybe a correlation with this high achievement that you focused on and emotional well-being? Do they is it do they go together? Do they travel independently? I mean, if you've got three kids that are all incredible achievers, I wonder if they're happier or less happy than if they maybe were more mediocre in their careers. But did you see any relationship there?
I think it's a really great question because, certainly the Groff family, everybody in the family spoke to me, at least, Sarah and Lauren, and I would say Adam a little bit more obliquely, about the challenges of feeling if you want to be one of the world's best novelists or one of the world's fastest swimmers, or, it's your mission in life to literally think that you're capable of improving the healthcare system. That comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of burden. And obviously, there's depression and anxiety in all kinds of families, successful, not successful. But I think it's safe to say, having, really spent time with these families, that success, achievement, accomplishing your dreams, they don't actually protect you from those things. And sometimes those problems and those struggles are what fuels the achievement, but the achievement doesn't cure them.
Yeah, I was listening to Bill Gates actually talking about some of the highest achievers in Silicon Valley and sometimes a negative correlation with emotional well-being and professional success. So you never do know.
Yeah, no,
Um,
a lot of athletes, they're only now are they starting to talk about, obviously Naomi Osaka. I'm sorry, um, if you could delete that. But am I getting that name right? Hold on a second. You can edit this, right? In recent years, you have athletes like Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles talking openly about their mental health struggles. And it's not a surprise that when you have that kind of pressure, there's a lot of emotional drain that comes with it. So I certainly don't think that you have to suffer from anxiety or depression in order to achieve. But as I said, the actual achievement itself definitely does not protect anyone from it.
yeah, it's great to see those athletes opening up more. It seems like that wouldn't have been as common today as it is today, a few decades ago. And it helps
Yeah,
a
and
lot of other. What's
yeah,
that?
I would actually add that, although I think Sarah True is best known for her athletic achievements within the field, and to me also she's hugely widely respected for being also one of the first athletes at her level to speak openly about depression, even suicidal ideation.
Yeah, that it can be really helpful. And that seems to be becoming more and more common for athletes and entertainer. I was at a Imagine Dragons concert this summer actually with my wife and kids, and the rock star, one of the biggest rock stars in the world, he stopped and gave a 2 or 3 minute speech about his mental health and how he was struggling. And I know that
Wow.
it really helps. And AJ Brown on the Eagles has talked about it a lot. So
Jeff Tweedy,
it's a good trend.
Jeff Tweedy of Wilco, a whole documentary about it. Yeah, about his
Yeah.
depression.
Well, what a great book. I think for people who are parents or not parents, it's important to understand that. And it's also I find it very fascinating and entertaining and, of course, very well written. So congratulations on the
Thank you,
book.
Will. It means a lot to me. Really does.
What's next for you? You got a few more minutes here. Are you focused on another book or you're writing for the Times Magazine? What's the next few years
Yeah,
look
I'll be
like?
focusing most of my attention on hopefully doing my most exciting work yet for the New York Times Magazine, where I'm lucky enough to be a staff writer, and I'm starting for fun to dabble in fiction, which I'm finding incredibly rewarding, and encourage everyone to give it a try just for fun. I think that's probably the best way to approach it.
Yeah, I've written both fiction and nonfiction, and the thing I love about fiction is you just run with it. Wherever you want to go, you go. You don't need to worry about footnotes or logic or evidence. You just run.
And
And
it's
it's a
its own
lot of
kind of
fun.
puzzle and its own kind of creativity. And yeah, I think it's kind of like everybody should do improv once or twice in their life, improv comedy, and everybody should try to write fiction once or twice in their lives.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on, and
Thank you.
congratulations on the book. It's in the show notes for listeners, and we really appreciate your time.
Will, thank you so much. Take care. Bye.